I have to make a good first, second, third, fourth, fifth impression on you, because I know it's going to take me at least 7 for you to even begin to show a little bit of interest.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bello. Today, I've got my friend Alex Vonderhaar on the show. Alex, welcome.
Thanks for having me, man. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's cool when you're talking to someone that you already know, because it's not like, oh, what am I going to talk about? What questions am I going to ask? I already feel like we know each other pretty well just from business coaching and a few calls that we've done throughout the year together. But why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? I've got your bio pulled up, but you probably have a fancier elevator line that you like to tell people. So go for it.
Oh, man. Well, first, thanks for having me. This is really cool to be on a show like yours. Most of the time I get lumped into a ton of just marketing and branding and advertising podcasts. So it's cool to get it out and kind of just push into different mediums and with different people. But I run a agency called Hidden Falls, and we are the premier neuromarketing agency inside the United States. So what that means is that we take neuroscience research around consumer behavior, and then we work on applying that into advertising, marketing, and digital means. So whether that's website optimization, ads, marketing campaigns, or just general business practices around, hey, what do we know about consumer psychology? How can we bring that back into a business that's existing, that's thriving already? And then how can we accelerate their cause, their mission, their message into different channels, different mediums, so they can connect more and deeper with their customers?
That's powerful. I'm actually reading a book that you recommended recently, building the story. What is it called? Story brand, building a story brand.
That's like marketing 101 for everybody. If you only pick up one marketing book in your life, Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller is like top notch. And then, everybody recommends like these really high level books for people. And then they get like, oh, well, shit, I don't understand marketing. And it's like, well, no kidding, because the books that you were recommended don't fit where you're at.
Right. Too high level. And it's all about going back to the basics sometimes, like doing the simple things are often the ones that are overlooked, right? That people think that it's so simple that they just don't do them and they don't have a foundation to build upon. But how did you get started with the neuromarketing thing? I know like some of your background and like Float Tank Center. I'd love to hear a little bit about the story just for those in my audience who have not come across your content or come across you just yet.
Totally. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, go for it, man.
Okay. Cool. I already dropped one, so it's like, well, we're already past that point, I guess.
Go for it.
Kind of taking it a little bit further back than where I take most people. Going through college, I wanted to be an art major. I was super fascinated with Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator. This is like CS2 and CS3 for all those Photoshop geeks out there, like way early into Photoshop. And I fell in love with it, man. It was really cool with the ability that you could do to manipulate photos, create vectors, and just use math in order to create art. I was fascinated by it. Got really, really good at composite imagery, which is like taking two images that aren't supposed to go together and creating really cool, beautiful things out of that. And that's kind of been the theme of a lot of my life. Like marketing and neuroscience shouldn't go together either, but somehow they found a way. And it came well before me. So there was a road that was already beginning to be paved. But I got told by my family, like, absolutely not. There's no way that you're going to go and become an art major. You're not going to make any money. You'll be living on my couch for the rest of your life. That whole stigma around graphic arts. And within that, I wanted to go and like work at Hollywood or down in Atlanta for CGI for movies, because I was like, man, like, wouldn't it be cool if I worked on Avatar or Lord of the Rings or like all these movies that I grew up with and I loved the plot lines to Star Wars. Got told over and over again, like, there's no chance that you're going to go and do that. You're way smarter than that. Don't go into art. So being 18 and young and dumb and full of cum, I said, well, I'm going to go pick the hardest major I can find then to prove you guys wrong, that I can be successful no matter what I do. Now, keep in mind, at 16, I was a massive stoner, taking psychedelics on the weekend, like not somebody you would expect to be going into that field. And I fell in love with neuroscience and psychology. So went to Ohio State, went through their psychopharmacology program. So understanding how drugs work in the brain, both legal, illegal, food, anything we consume, how does that actually work in our brain? And was going to go through the medical school program, and I had a heart issue that was caused by a allergic reaction. Pulled me out of there, and pretty much all my professors said there's no way you're going to ever get insured as a surgeon. You're not going to get insured as a doctor. Like, you can go and do studies and do research, but you're never going to be able to see patients. And I already kind of knew that the pharmacology world was already corrupt, and like there wasn't a lot that was going on that I was going to be able to touch. And without that experience, or 30, 40 years down the line, I wasn't going to be able to impact people. And I always knew kind of deep down that I was meant to do that in some way. So I pulled out and I said, oh, okay, so life gave me lemons. How do we pivot? So I went back home, moved into mom's basement. And that was the time that I started kind of taking jujitsu, and I found flotation therapy. A buddy of mine, after kicking my ass at jujitsu a few times and really kind of cracking my rib hard and fracturing my floating rib, was like, hey, man, like, I actually own a float center. Why don't you come float? It'll heal this up really quickly, and then I won't feel bad. So I ended up floating for like free for a really long time. And eventually I was like, do you need help? Like, this center doesn't really seem like it ever has more than like 1 or 2 people working here. He was like, oh man, like if you want a part-time job, I'd be more willing to give it to you because you love the process of floating. Like, you're totally bought in. So got a job, worked there for a few months. And then I got told the news that no new hire wants to hear is that we're probably going to end up closing the center, closing the business, unless we figure something out. Said, okay, so what do we need to do? He said, well, we've never really cracked digital marketing. Okay. So I started looking up digital marketing tips, how to market. And lo and behold, I stumbled across Gary Vee, everybody's favorite marketer out inside of social media land. And
Yep.
I love Gary. I think he's great for a lot of things. I think he's wrong on just as many as he's right on.
Just he
But
puts out so much content. It's gonna
yeah,
be
it's impossible not to be wrong. But the dude's got receipts longer than most of our lifespans. So
yeah.
I started getting into marketing and started learning about it. So I picked up Seth Godin's books. I started learning about Donald Miller. I started really digging into marketing as a whole. And then I found out about this world called consumer neuroscience. That's pretty cool. So I dug into that and I was like, holy crap, this is all like Psych 101 stuff. This is social psychology. This is basic neuroscience principles that are applied across commerce. I was like, we can probably actually do this. So I did the hard part out of all that, which is learning Facebook and Google ads. And then I started to kind of blend that in and learn what other people had already paved the way for me to do. And then said, hey, this is actually going to start to work. So we started to implement sensory neuromarketing, Google ads, Facebook ads, and our center actually turned 2.2 million within about 18 months, which is unheard of inside the float industry, but we made it happen. We opened up 2 brick and mortar locations after that. I was managing a team of about 11 female girls under the age of 23. Me, myself, I'm probably like 22 at this time. So they're a little bit older than me, but it was still a weird situation. The owner kind of said, I don't want any part of this. I'm just going to be a remote owner and just you run it. And I said, okay, I'm making $8.25 an hour, working 35 hours a week, managing both locations, and I'm running all your paid media that you just bought your mom a G-Wagon for. Your dad just got a new what was it, a 150, 250, whatever those trucks are. I don't know. I'm not a car guy.
Fancy trucks. I'm not a truck person either.
Big fancy truck, and he's driving around in a new BMW. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like, I'm still living in my mom's basement.
Yeah. Damn.
I just made you all this money and I'm still broke. How does that happen? And that, like, I was talking to my family and my grandparents about, and they were like, that's owning a business. Like, the business owner makes all the money and most of the people underneath them make pennies. I was like, well, this is really screwed up. Like, I'm not going to go through with this. I know I just acquired a new skill set that any other business owner would find super valuable. So I had about $2,000 saved up in my bank account. Don't know how I managed that. And about January of 18, I decided just screw it. I'm doing it. So I opened up my own agency. So there's 5 neuromarketing agencies inside the US. 4 out of the 5 focus on research. So all they do is they work with big companies like Walmart, IBM, Nike, NFL, Frito-Lay's, P&G, GE. They just focus on the research. Nobody takes that research that's out on PubMed that everybody's publishing and brings it back to the everyday business owner. That was it. That was that light bulb moment. I was like, there's something here. And we've been moving ever since then.
That's amazing. And so you've taken your skill set where you were maybe not quite paid what you were worth and the value wasn't really seen there. I mean, I think many business owners that are kind of like win-win scenario, abundant focused, they might look at that and be like, dude, you just helped me make X million dollars. Like, I'm just going to give you like 20K check or something, like a bonus,
Right.
like something, right?
Not
So you probably
well,
came up with that like chip on your shoulder, like I'm going to just do this for my clients and build my own legacy. Is that like your mindset?
dude, my Christmas. So he gave me a bonus. I will give him
Okay.
credit. He gave me a
Okay.
bonus. It was $500 in cash. And at the time, I was like, "Holy shit, this is $500. I can do a lot with this." And well, like looking back, it's like, dude, that was only $500. Like that's a good dinner somewhere,
Right.
let alone like a Christmas bonus. And yeah, man, it really kind of gave me a new perspective on how I wanted to be a business owner, like what type of business owner I wanted to be. And you're exactly right. It gave me that abundance mindset of there's money everywhere. Even today, we're recording this early December of 22. Everybody's freaking out about the economy.
Yeah.
Money's everywhere. Even on the New York Stock Exchange, there's trillions of dollars traded on Wall Street every day. Every day, trillions upon trillions is crossed hands. There's no lack of money. You just have to
Mhm.
be aware enough to see where it's going and how it's flowing.
Right. That's so true. And I know that, like, I in theory I understand that, but at the same time when you're getting stuck in like scarcity mode sometimes for those listening, I mean, me being in the real estate space and like interest rates going up, transactions are down 30 or 40% year over year from this time last year. So it's so hard to not get caught up in the whole gloom and doom of the headlines and you're like, none of my clients want to buy or sell right now. So I'm seeing that on my side a little bit as well. But then, like you mentioned, that's a pleasant reminder of like, well, where's all the money going? People are still buying stuff. They're still going to play golf today. Money is still changing hands. Maybe it's just a matter of repackaging or repurposing, like what you already offer. Or maybe it comes down to the messaging, which is why I'm diving into that book that you recommended to me, because I can help people. Like we all have solutions that others are looking for, but perhaps we're not conveying that we are the guide that can get them through the valley of despair that they're in to the other side. So I love just hearing your story and how you've come through your own path of growth and struggle and challenge and living in the mom's basement. That's like always like the story you hear is going back to your mom's basement to start from scratch and then building your empire from there.
You want to hear a funny side story to that?
For sure. It's
So
related to
about
the basement?
Yeah, it is. Well, kind of. So about 4 months ago, I got a text message from the guy. Well, it was actually an Instagram DM. He was like, "Hey, I have an opportunity for you that I think you're really gonna love."
You're like, all
Totally
right,
ignored
tell
him.
me more. Oh, you ignored
Yeah,
him
well, I
completely?
ignored him because him and I had some other stuff go on in the time that had passed from the time I left him and started my agency.
Yeah.
He actually hired me again to do his paid ads, and I charged him 15 grand a month, and he did it without a blank because he knew what I was worth then.
Right.
Uh, but he hit me up a few months ago, and he was like, "Hey, I've got an offer for you." Totally ignored him, and I come to find out later that he was selling the business, and he was
Wow.
looking. I'm assuming with a lot of good insight that he was going to ask me to buy it from him, but I'm glad I didn't because now he flew to Mexico and fled the U.S. after the new owner found out that he had issued close to like $40,000 or $50,000 worth of gift cards out to just patrons, and the new owner didn't know that. Wasn't
Yikes.
anywhere inside the business deal, wasn't disclosed. And when the IRS came after him, he flew down to Mexico, and now he has a restriction on his visa. So, hey, man, enjoy Mexico in case you hear this.
Yeah, that sucks. I mean, it's all about doing the right thing, and when no one's watching, it's going to come back to bite you, right? Karma is definitely real, and I think we both follow a lot of the same people that talk about putting your shopping cart away, and even if there's a random cart and you're in the lot, be the person to put it away. Don't be that person who's like, no one's around, it's dark, no one's going to see me, because really you're just cheating yourself at the end of the day, and things like that can come back to bite you years later,
Oh
as
yeah,
that guy is finding out right now.
it made me
Dang.
really happy, which it shouldn't. But
That
but as a human that has an ego, you're still like you definitely deserve that.
heck yeah, heck yeah. And we'd all be lying if we act like we're all saints. I mean, there's a part of us that kind of likes to see karma come around where it feels like justice. You know, I always love that Punisher
Yeah,
line where he's like, it's not revenge, it's punishment. I always loved that, where I'm like, yes, it's kind of like you're getting what you deserve. You need something, karma's just got to go around. And I don't really try to wish ill upon anyone, but I just believe in like the karma, where what goes around comes around. You put good out, you're going to get good back. If you put bad out, that's going to come back too, and you're just going to get yours. And yeah, just doing what you can and focusing on what you can control, while understanding that the world's going to kind of do its thing, and there's all kinds of interactions that we're going to have, good and bad, and we can't control all of them.
100%.
Like, I mean, Butterfly Effect too, if you've ever seen that movie. Yep. I think of maybe that guy, while you felt a little bit kind of ripped off or undervalued and you had that chip on your shoulder, if you didn't have that lesson, maybe we wouldn't be here right now.
Right.
So it all comes full circle.
It sure does, man. It, I'm not super religious or spiritual, but it definitely makes me believe in that there's a higher power moving some things in and out of your way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's really interesting how life ends up working out depending on what path you choose to follow and where you put your intentions and your mind.
100%. And now here you are, 7-figure agency. You built this from nothing. And I'm just reading that from the bio. You said you built the 7-figure agency from nothing. You've learned a bunch of lessons along the way, yada, yada, yada. I love how you included that, because there's so much more. like what is the yada, yada, yada? That's like the failures, the late nights, the lessons.
Oh, dude.
Going to the Arte Summit, that one-day event where you negotiated someone to get your ticket as part of a deal that you're already doing with them. Like, it's really cool to see all the different things and the moving pieces that you wouldn't really be able to control from a higher level. There's like some power in the universe or God or whatever people want to call it that is opening doors for you as you continue to do the work, obviously.
Yeah. So funny story on me negotiating my Arte Syndicate ticket.
Cool.
if you want to go through that.
Yeah, dude, that was so creative. When I heard you say that, it was just another example of, I am just limiting myself to be like, I can't afford that right now, or I can't, go for it. Just share the story for those who are listening right now, because everyone listening, when Alex mentioned this story, it just opened my mind to the possibilities of anything's negotiable, and you can make doors open that you thought were not available to you. So please do share.
So I got into Arte when they opened up the accelerator. So that was my first real year in business. It's run by Andy Frisella and Ed Milet, two of the best entrepreneurs in the U.S. currently, and I would probably argue for the next 100 to 200 years. Both of them have figured out a way to build massive empires across multiple different industries, from health and wellness to cannabis to alcohol to financial services to potato chips and health foods. Like, anything these two dudes touch turned to gold. And when I was working at the Float Tank Center, I was listening to MF CEO Project and the Ed Milet show, because I had heard Gary Vee talk about Andy Frisella, and then Andy slammed Gary on social one day. And I was like, this dude's fucking hilarious. I need to figure out what he's got going on. And that's when I figured out that he actually had a podcast. He was talking about personal development and all that, like all the stuff that we get from Arte currently. So I'd known about Andy for a while I was working there. And one of the things that really caught my attention with him is he had this phrase from the MF CEO Project, where if you're going to go work at McDonald's, be the best fry cook you can be. Like, if you're going to dump fries and that's what you're going to get paid to do, those better be the best tasting fries that anybody's ever put out. Otherwise, you don't stand a chance in the real world. Yeah. And there I was at the Float Center, wiping salt off of tanks, cleaning up piss out of the shower, like dirty towels. People are gross in general. And you put them around water and ask them not to piss in the pod for 60 minutes while they're floating. And it's practically impossible. So they get out of the pod and then just go piss in the shower. Yeah, it's
laughing because I've done that once. I was like,
I can't lie, I have too.
I got caught. Yeah. This was a 90-minute float tank session, and I'm drinking a gallon of water a day, and I'm like, where am I supposed to pee? They need a urinal in those things. Just random side note.
Trust me, if I had my so one day I will own a franchise of float centers, and we're going to do it right.
Put a urinal in that thing.
There's got to be a restroom in that thing, hands down, no questions asked. But anyway, yeah, I was listening to his podcast, and I was like, I knew one day I was going to get close to this guy. I didn't know how, didn't know when, but I knew that was going to happen. So I found out about Arate Syndicate. I couldn't get in when they opened up the first year because the first entry ticket was $50,000 and I had $2,000 to my name. I was like, I can't credit card that off. Like, that's not going to fly. And then they opened up the accelerator, which was like $500 a month when it first started. I was like, okay, I can actually do that. Like I can go sell somebody and use what they're paying me to pay for Arate. So I did that for the first few years of like one of my clients that's really low level. And still to this day, I only charge them $500 and the rest of my clients are multiple thousands a month to work with. And I'm straight up with them and I tell them, I'm like, hey man, like you were my evergreen Arate ticket. And they laugh and chuckle because they know about Ed, but they don't really follow Andy because of his politics. So I got in running the business and then they started talking about these events. Well, COVID happened. COVID stopped all events. And then they, after COVID, they started doing these big mastermind groups that were, when I say big, I mean financially ticket big, not necessarily people big. Like starting out, the first one was 15 grand. So I paid that one out of pocket. And I said, okay, like I got a lot of value, got some clients. It's a perfect kind of pool of people for my business, high performing entrepreneurs that want to leverage and want to grow. And we're a perfect medium for them because most agencies suck. They'll tell you like, hey, I'm going to run ads for you. Great. What else are you going to do for me? I only run ads. I don't do copywriting. I don't do websites. I don't do SEO. I don't do email and SMS. I don't do anything else that's actually required to see success. Figured out, okay, my perfect audience is here. So I did it, made connections. It was great. Second one rolled around. In that meantime, I had hired 5 new people onto my staff. So my funds of what I could pull out for myself as a business owner to go and invest that back into me as the asset for my business were really low. Still making money, but not to the point where I could just go flip a 15K ticket and make it work. So I was kind of messing around with this idea. And when you and I were in a mastermind group with Tony Watley for 365 Driven, shout out to Tony.
Yeah.
I kind of came with this idea, right? I was like, so what would happen if I actually negotiated my way into here? Well, I can't negotiate with Andy and Ed for the ticket price, but somebody would be willing to pay for it, wouldn't they? And I was like, like that idea actually might work. So I messaged a few of my clients that were also inside of Arate. And I said, hey, would you be willing to pay for my ticket if I did a few months of free services for you? I already have the team. I'm already paying the overhead. I'm already doing everything that I can for labor. And you're seeing great results. Why wouldn't you pay for me to go be better? And 2 of them said no. 1 of them said yes.
That's a good pitch. Why wouldn't you pay for me to be better?
I got to fit. Yeah. I mean, so the only expense I had to pay for was a flight down to Miami and my hotel ticket. So for $2 grand for a weekend, I got to go rub elbows with Ed and Andy. I ended up coming back with 3 new contracts that were easily worth $100,000.
Wow.
Why wouldn't you? And I think a lot of our great ideas, I know for mine, come from when it's not necessarily that my back was pinned against the corner, but I wanted something and I didn't have the funds to just pop it out. And I've noticed across my lifetime of running my business and running my agency that there's times when that happens to me regularly. And I feel like I'm honestly in one of those seasons now. I've taken a small step back. I've purposefully or subconsciously even pinned myself into a little bit of a corner because I know I'm going to get more creative about how I can move forward.
Yeah. Resourcefulness. I know I've heard Tony Robbins say that the greatest resource is resourcefulness. And oftentimes, Andy said this too, whenever you have money, it's often a hindrance or it hinders you a little bit because you can just pay for stuff and you think that I'm just going to pay my way out of this problem instead of actually getting creative. And that's when you can get really destroyed because you might just buy some business that you shouldn't do or get into a partnership with someone who you didn't really vet. And that money goes fast when you're not back against the wall. Like, you like to put yourself in sometimes because it forces you to think creatively outside the box. I want to go to this event, but I don't have that 15K right now to just drop. How do I get there? And you ask questions that maybe other people would just say, maybe I'll go next year. And then they never end up going. And you found yourself a seat at the table by just getting creative and asking some questions.
I think there's a lot of mindset around money, and there's definitely a ton of psychology around it too. People tend to think that money is like stackable, and it is to a degree, right? But I look at and one of the bad parts about going to events with super high worth people is that you see that mindset of like, I've got enough money, so I'm good. And when you dig into it, they're like, oh yeah, I've got like 300K in the bank account. Great. But that's wasting away.
Yeah.
I get uncomfortable when I have that much money in the bank account because I know it needs to be doing other things. It's like holding on to energy. Like if I was just to like light a fire inside of your hands would naturally want to expand that to let that flame out. And I feel the same way about money too. Like, yes, it's a little bit more liberal than what most people would probably feel comfortable with because there's risk involved with it. But I feel like there's just as much risk of holding on to that and feeling like, oh, like I need to have this. Having a war chest is absolutely a solid strategy. But when I start hitting certain milestones, I get really uncomfortable and it makes me anxious. Like that money needs to be doing other things. And
Yeah.
if it's not, then I know I'm putting myself behind. So it's kind of this weird dichotomy where I'm comfortable because I'm uncomfortable purposely by putting myself into this weird thing. It's almost like because I understand that money's fluid and it comes and goes like the sun, I know it'll always come back. I've put enough out there and I continue to pour into other people to where I know there's enough that if I want to cash out on it, I can. But I feel like keeping too much of it at any time is just a bad thing. Like
Yeah.
I want to deploy it. I want to pour it into my team. I want to do new products like the one that we were talking about a few weeks ago inside the group. Like that was a $50,000 investment. Okay. That's a big chunk just to pull out and say, I'm going to roll the dice on 50 grand of a new product launch for myself, but it'll pay off. And if it doesn't, I at least have a new piece of technology that then I can leverage and sell later down the road. So it's not like I really got rid of it, but it does me no good sitting in a bank account because now I'm limited by my opportunities. Yes, I can buy my way out of a problem, but I would have never have seen the resourcefulness like you were talking about to be able to point and leverage things in different directions.
Right, right. And sometimes winning makes us a little bit lazy and complacent. We've heard that message too. When you're starting to see some momentum, you take your foot off the gas and you slow down and you think you're good when you have that certain amount. And it's probably different for everyone, right? Like I think I've heard friends say, as long as they have at least 50K in the account, they feel comfortable. And I know other people are like, dude, I feel uncomfortable unless I have 200K saved away for like my rainy day fund or whatever, right? Fill in the blank.
Right.
But that kind of ties into that conversation of just raising the thermostat, because if you're comfortable at having like a $2,000 in your checking account level, you got to start hanging out with people who are like 50,000 or 100,000, or maybe they get so uncomfortable like you're talking about, you don't want to have that much money just sitting there doing nothing. You want it deployed on various investments. So it's helpful though when you get into those rooms of people who are thinking about those problems of, what should I do with this 15K? Should I go to that event? Should I go to that event? Should I stay, VIP tickets, or should we go, I don't know, to the next summit, for example? You're thinking about different problems. Whereas if you're just going down to your local YMCA or gym or whichever gym you work out at, perhaps the conversations are not the same. They're just like, oh man, the gym raised its prices by $5 a month. Like that's expensive. I can't afford that. It's different problems versus 10K, 100K problems. How do we solve those, right? You're thinking
Well,
at
that
a
might be
different scale.
expensive, right? Like if you don't value your gym, that might be expensive for you.
Yeah, your health.
It doesn't mean you don't have the cash. You just don't value it anymore.
That's so true, because people will find a way to pay for things that they value.
Yeah. I valued being in that room. Somebody else didn't value their cash as much as they valued what I could get for them.
Right. It's just an exchange of value, and everyone's got different thermometers that they run by.
Yeah.
So how do you raise your thermostat? Have you found a way to do that over the years? I know we talked about on a recent call of just like getting to the next level. How do you continue to level up and not have any maybe limiting beliefs or holding yourself back? Have you found a way through that, or is there anything that you can share that you've been working on personally?
I mean, the first million's the hardest to make, right? Because you're just grinding your teeth literally every day. And even still, like it's still like I'm here at 6:30 at night. And I mean, we have a call after this that'll go until probably like 10:30, 11 my time. And
Yeah.
I was here at the office by 6 o'clock. Like I give up a lot of things, but there's also things that I don't give up on because I know they make me happy. It's like Ed will tell you, it's environment, it's the people you hang around, it's what you're willing to tolerate versus not tolerate. And I look at him, and after one of the syndicate events, like you can tell when he was on the stage that he was having issues, not necessarily public speaking, but like physical health issues, because he was so invested into that. And I look at that and I was like, that dude has raised his thermostat so high that I know if I tried to compete against him, I wouldn't be happy. And I'm looking at this as I'm going to raise my thermostat at my speed and at my pace, because I want to be happy while I'm doing this. And I don't want to just burn out after 2 or 3 years. I see people that just grind their nutsack off trying to get into like the 7-figure comma club with like ClickFunnels. And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why? Like, what is that going to give you? Status. Great. What next? Well, that status is going to give me happiness because people will think I'm great. Why do you care what they think?
Right. They're just chasing kind of an empty feeling, and they get there and they realize that's not even what they were looking for the whole time.
It's not there. I recognized a few years ago I wasn't going to play that game. And what's funny is that when I stopped playing that game, I actually made more money.
That's crazy.
And it kind of like attracted to me. And it was really strange. And I think a lot of people will probably recognize that if they've gone through that. Like the minute I stopped chasing it, it actually happened.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that same day, but like over like the next few months when I stopped chasing it and I focused on me being happy and me finding balance and me being able to pour into people the way that I know I can, and that the way they deserve to be poured into, that's when everything really started to change for us as a company, as an organization, our culture, my relationships with people. Yeah, I still have issues. Everybody does. Anybody that's run a business knows that the hardest thing is managing people.
Mm-hmm.
But it made it fun. If I'm going to spend the majority of my life with these people, live in this office for the majority of these next few years, why wouldn't it be fun?
Right. That's powerful. And it's almost like the law of attraction thing, or I always think of when you're in a relationship in high school or something, and it seems like, man, like you're getting a lot of attention and you could easily go like pick up that girl if you wanted to, or that, like it's so easy when you're not looking for it, like the money thing. But as soon as you get out of that relationship and you're like single and awkward and you're trying to like plan with your boys on like, let's go talk to that group of girls, and you're repelling people because you're too needy for it and you push it away. Like people do that with money and with relationships. If you need it too badly and you're too desperate, you have that commission breath, as they kind of say in the real estate industry. People can tell. They can tell that you need that deal and that you're desperate, and no one's ever attracted because there's no scarcity there. You're coming on too strong. Versus if you're harder to reach, if you're harder to get to, if you're more in demand, more and more people want to work with you and throw their money at you and hire you.
Yeah.
So it's weird how that works out, but that's a powerful lesson.
What changed for me is we started turning away business.
And that can be hard to do at first too. You take those clients on that you're like, I don't want to work with this asshole. And you see the dollar signs over their head and you take them on, and your quality of life suffers for it.
We started grading clients when they came in before we would ever work with them. And this was a change even like 6 months ago. We kind of reinvented into a new way. But before we bring on any new client, we rank it of where inside of all these metrics are they going to be a headache? And does my team have the bandwidth or the mental strength to deal with that headache? Because if they can't deal with it, the client's not going to be happy. My employee's not going to be happy. I'm not going to be happy. Nobody wins.
Right.
So why would I take that business on? And because of that, we flipped our entire agency model around that idea of how much of a headache is this person going to be, or this problem going to be, rather than the person.
Right.
So they come to me and say, I've got I average 40 grand a month in sales. I've never done marketing before and I have no idea what we're doing. No,
they just don't even know what they don't know.
Right. And it's like, okay, I can teach this person and build them from the ground up. And I typically have, not saying we don't, I have like 2 or 3 that I work with at a time that I do that for. The rest of them are at a higher level to where they know what they need. And we're able to do that for them at an accelerated pace and with exceptional service. But the people I was taking on where $5K a month in ad spend, not including management fees, we're already ranking up to like 20% of their total monthly revenue.
Yeah.
Like if we don't make numbers work 1 month, they're screwed. That's a headache I don't want to have to manage because I'm at the mercy of so many other things. Facebook costs, Google costs, general marketing costs, right? You want to go print something right now. Good luck. It's expensive.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't control that. I don't know what to tell you besides we're out there doing science experiments for your brand. Science experiments are meant to fail. It means we're making progress.
You're testing.
Right. We're testing. And people hear that like, oh, like all my marketer does is test things. Good.
That's the game.
The number one goal of an advertiser or a marketer is to fail fast and cheap. And as soon as business owner, and that's the number one thing we prime people with 2 messages. Marketing is a game of memorization. They have to memorize who you are, what you do, and how you solve their problem for them.
Yep.
The next thing they have to memorize is that advertising and marketing is a game of failing fast and effectively. If I can fail fast and cheap at the same time, I know we're about to catch gold really, really fast. The brands that suffer are the ones that see the initial peak of success, and then it kind of like peters off slowly.
Yeah.
But they have no idea what caused that little bit of peak because they never failed in the process to get to that initial point. So now we're in this game of trying to recreate failure while trying to promote success at the same time. So you get these, like you're putting conflicting messages out there into the world and into the universe. We don't know why it failed because we don't know why it actually worked either. So you're kind of like, and it's screwed up at every, like, and this is where I get so upset with people that just do ads or just do SEO or just do email and SMS. It's like, that's great. But if email and SMS is driving a 10-to-1, ads are driving a 1-to-1, but all you're gauging your entire marketing on is the 1-to-1, like, especially with e-commerce, right? Like if I get a 1-to-1 on somebody that drops from a Google or a Facebook ad, and that's my customer acquisition cost, I broke even on customer acquisition. But if I'm running email and SMS and we're getting a 10-to-1 and I can market to them 2 or 3 times a month, your global, we call it ROMI, return on marketing initiatives. It goes way up. But if all I'm doing is running one silo for you and somebody else on another agency isn't connecting with you or they're not sharing that message, what I may have failed on in the first initial part, I'm succeeding on in the second. We don't know how to run that play anymore because the 2 things never actually talked and communicated to one another.
Right. Wow. That's interesting just to hear how things relate to each other and how you have to be able to test everything. I heard another marketer that I follow call it drilling test holes. Like I'm just drilling to see if there's oil there, and maybe there's not.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's an amazing oil well that just continues to deliver for the next few years.
Yeah. That's phase. So we call it phase 1.
Okay.
So typically like when we're running ads, and I'll give everybody my ad model because it's super simple. But until you go to do it, you're like, well, shit, like here we go again.
Yeah.
So especially with paid media, right? If you're running Facebook or Google ads, here's the exact way to set it up. It's super easy, really simple. There's technically 4 parts, but there's really 3. Let's say you've run ads in the past and they've worked, right? We call that like you get to jump to phase 1. Phase 1 is nothing but audience testing. I'm going to use a previously performing ad on phase 1, super low budget, like $5 a day per ad set level. And I'm just going to test. I'm going to test as wide as I can. I'll run 15 to 20 different like segments or audience markets that I can run, figure out what works, figure out if I have a great unique click-through rate or if my engagement rate's great, figure out if the market and that audience actually responds to what I have to offer. Phase 2 is when we actually get to have fun, which is where you're actually going to start to see some ROI. And that's when we start to creative test. So we'll figure out all the audiences that work together. If it's Facebook, put them into a stacked audience. Don't use a lookalike. If it's Google, build them out into their own campaign, use those audiences inside of there, and then start headline and creative testing around all of it. Your headlines, your copy, your creative, your landing page, your VSL, everything that you could possibly run to attract clients, test it there because you already know that the audience that is coming to you from those markets actually work, right? Because we saw the signal inside of phase 1 that says, hey, we've got a unique click-through rate of 5%. That may sound bad, but that's a great audience signal saying, hey, something that you're offering inside this marketplace probably has a good validity to it. Phase 2, we do all of our creative testing. We figure out, hey, Facebook wants you to see 50 conversions a week. Great. How much is it going to cost to convert each one? $10. Awesome. 10 times 50 conversions a week, which is Facebook's golden standard. That's $500 a month. Divide that out by 7 days a week. You've got your daily ad budget. Run it for a few weeks, make sure it's stable, and then figure out how many conversions you can actually handle a week. So for e-com stores, lead generation, how many leads can your sales team handle? Let's say it's 200, right? 200 times $10 acquisition, $2,000 a month, or $2,000 rather, divide by 7. Now you've got your daily ad budget for a scaling based ad. Works the exact same on Facebook as it does on Google. Sounds really simple, right?
Yeah. In theory, when you're talking about it here, I know that simple doesn't always mean easy though.
Right. And that's where things fail, because most ad buyers and most marketers don't talk together. The email and SMS arm doesn't really talk to the paid ads arm. Neither does the SEO arm talk to the email and SMS arm. So we have no idea how to really manage this. But long term, if you want to be successful on these platforms, that is the number one play after iOS 14.5 that nobody's talking about. Is just making it simple and doing a scientific test on it, but it wins every single time.
A lot of times people will try to make assumptions and say, oh, I think we should do this, or what do you think? And I'm like, I don't know. Like you have to test everything, create the landing page, create an opt-in, create an offer, email your list, see if there's anyone who bites. And that's what a buddy of mine who runs, they've got a 6-figure a month yoga YouTube channel and membership offer. And he said he'll just send so many offers out to his email, just saying, hey, this mastermind accepting 10 people, $2,000 a piece, who's in? And maybe you make no sales. Maybe no one's interested. All right, let's change the offer. And then the next month it's something else. And then occasionally he comes across something where he gets more demand than he expected. And that's the mastermind that he goes and runs with, because there was enough demand to lock people in for a 12-month, term or whatever. And he can go and explore that. And if he likes it and enjoys it, he can run that again the following year. And if not, he can go test something else. So it's all about testing. And I think that's the big takeaway for the audience today. Don't make assumptions. Don't guess. Don't just blindly try to copy what someone else is doing that's a competitor. Create your own, you can funnel hack people or whatever, like maybe model what's working, but ultimately you have to test it yourself.
And to that point, if all you're doing is copying what someone else is doing, you don't know if they're meant to get a 1-to-1 on it, or if they're meant to lose money, knowing that email or SMS or their paid group on Circle or Facebook or Mighty Network or wherever that is actually the conversion channel for them.
Right.
You're assuming that the ad or the funnel that you see is actually where they're making their money.
Dang.
Which is wrong. It's almost never the case.
The top of the funnel, right? That's just
right.
The entry point.
Which, funny enough, the most expensive point of the entire funnel
is the front end, getting people through the door.
Is the top of funnel, because people don't know who you are.
Yeah. Especially cold traffic, I would imagine.
And
then me being in the referral, like real estate referrals, I haven't really done paid ads or anything like that personally. So I know there's a whole different level that you're in with your clients and e-commerce and scaling those businesses, like the complexity of those funnels and the follow-up sequence and the texts and, high level, I think all these different programs that you've talked about in different calls that we've been in, there's levels to this game that a lot of people who are just starting off, or maybe they're just scratching the surface, they don't understand yet, because we don't know what we don't know yet until you get into it. And then there's another layer of the onion and another layer and another layer. And it's all about just continuing to chase your potential and figure out, how can we optimize this? How can we make it a little bit better where it converts a slight, a smidge more? And then that ends up increasing your revenue by X% the following year.
We talk about 1% month over month.
And it sounds so ridiculously small, but it compounds.
Yeah. So you're talking about like the hidden layers. When people submit a lead, right? And most people are like, oh, like I did my best with that lead over email and SMS, and email doesn't work anymore. Nonsense. Just like you said with that other guy, I convert most of my paid media, even for my own agency. So we have a $27 newsletter offer, which I'm going to pitch you guys on later, because it's freaking awesome. And if you're not subscribed to it, you're missing out on the best marketing stuff and information out there. But I have a 60-part email drip sequence that goes after that.
60 parts. Wow.
60 emails, 60.
Wow.
because I know it's going to take them a while if they don't know me to get to know me. And if they don't drop into my Facebook group, or they don't drop into the podcast, or if they don't drop into anywhere else, I've got them for 60 emails, 45% conversion rate. By the time they've reached all the way down there, 45% of people that I bring into that funnel will convert for $27 a month.
Wow.
Now it becomes a math game.
How many people
How
can
many
you get to
people?
go through there?
Right. But when I first did it, I had 5 emails. It's taken me 2 months to build up that email sequence. And and to your point of testing, right? I knew, so like and every entrepreneur knows this idea is going to hit, right? And we love rolling the dice to see if that idea is going to hit. But oftentimes you're marketing too much, too fast to too many people. I pitch really only 1 or 2 things at a time, and I'll move people down depending on where they're at. But most of the time you're not marketing enough of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
We like there's the old adage, somebody has to see your brand or see your offer 7 times before they actually buy.
Right.
My math tells me it's closer to 30 to 40.
Dang.
But I've pushed past that, because when I got past, I think it was like 35 or 36 emails is really like where the majority of them buy, and the rest of them are kind of trickles. All those, it's free money for me at that point. It's just more emails and more copywriting.
And the beautiful part is, once you do the work up front, it's
all
set
over.
it and forget it. You know, the email sequences are up, and then it's sending people through your funnels and through your various email sequences, depending on what your offer is. So I'm curious, whenever you're coming up with those emails, when you came up with the 60 sequence email, did you do much testing there, or did you just say, this is how I'm going to do it? Maybe like where people are unsubscribing, I need to check that email. What's not
Exactly.
resonating, that's what you're looking at?
I'm looking at, so typically with email, it's all headline. So one of the best market or copywriting tips I've ever gotten is next time you're at Walmart, Meijer, Kroger, wherever, pick up a few editions of the National Enquirer.
Okay.
Because their number one business, like their entire business model, is selling one headline. If you can nail one headline and keep stacking headline after headline after headline after headline, you're going to see where your headlines either start to drop off or people just get tired of hearing from you.
Yep.
And yeah, like I've got, what is that? 65% of people get tired of hearing from me. Wrong mindset.
Yeah.
Wrong mindset. I don't want them anyway, because they're not going to like the information I have anyway. I love what Andy says about all of marketing and all of advertising. Out of your entire 100% pie, 50% are absolutely not going to want to hear from you. They hate your guts just from seeing your face, seeing your brand, whatever it is. The other 50% have the propensity to like you. That still means you have to earn to get to that 50%.
Right.
That means I have to entertain, educate, and impact them every step along the way. All my emails that go through, and like I recommend people go through, not because I want to sell you, but like just look at the headlines. They're funny. I try to stand out. There's crude humor in a few of them, and the crude humor ones convert the highest out of any of my other ones. And my clients laugh at me. Like I'll show them the data. Like we just got done with Black Friday and Cyber Monday. I wrote out a 15-piece email sequence for a client, and he said he didn't like it because we used crude humor. I showed him my data on mine. I said, run it, and I'll pay you the difference if you don't actually see results of what you would have gotten out of this. 15x on email.
Wow.
Just email alone. That's not touching SMS.
That's
I'm not
amazing.
saying you have to go and sling dick jokes all over the internet and all over people's inboxes.
That might be the secret.
But like humor, right? Like everybody's inbox is so filled with corporate speak. If you subscribe to Home Depot, Uggs, right?
Game
like
over.
All, like it's boring. It's boring email.
Death by corporate email. Yeah.
It's awful. So how do you stand out in an inbox? You have to be different somehow. And there's like headline graders and all this other stuff out there that are effective in helping you kind of tweak it. But at the end of the day, like we're dealing with human beings. And when you know your audience and know exactly who you're talking to, it's almost like having a conversation with yourself or a good friend where you can tell those jokes and not be like, oh, I can't believe they said all that. It's like, well, I would talk like this if we were sitting across from the table with each other and I cracked a joke to make you smile.
Right.
Like, why wouldn't I do that over an email? Because I have to make a good first, second, third, fourth, fifth impression on you, because I know it's going to take me at least 7 for you to even begin to show a little bit of interest. So who's more fun at the party? The guy that's kind of talking about his offer all the time, that's giving you his business card just every single time you see him. It's like, dude, I've got 4 of them in my car still from the last event. I don't need another business card from you. I need to connect with you as a person.
Right. And that also makes it easier on you because you can be your authentic self instead of trying to clean everything up and sugarcoat it. And, oh, that, let me take that out. That's a little bit too PG-13 for my audience, right? You're not overthinking it. You're just being authentic, writing those emails and letting them rip.
Gee, I wonder who's bad about that. Realtors.
Dude, I've had friends tell me like, man, you're way better at marketing than most realtors. Like, they just don't get it. They do open houses. They have the cheesy cross-armed pictures and just, they don't embrace authenticity. You know, they're all trying to be this image. And I'm not trying to throw everyone under the bus because there's plenty of ones on TikTok and doing Instagram reels that are changing the game, but challenge the status quo, right? Andy talks about all the time is like, don't be that corny person with your arms crossed on your business card. No one cares about that. How are you going to stand out? How are you going to make an impact? How are you going to be memorable? And no one needs another business card. They need a new relationship and someone that they can connect with, like you mentioned. So that is a really powerful takeaway.
Yeah.
Well, man, I know we're at the end of our time and we've got that call to hop on here in about 30 minutes. What would be a key takeaway that you'd want the audience to know? I mean, obviously test everything, I think, is a very big nugget that I got. Don't assume, test every email, split test if possible. But would love to hear your thoughts on what you think people can implement today.
Understand that marketing is a game of memorization. Everything you do, people are trying to, you have to get your audience to memorize who you are and how you help them. Not necessarily who, like when I say who you are, I'm not talking about like they need to hear your name and see your face and all your logo stuff. They just have to know about you.
Right.
Like that's like once you've got that down, the rest of it will kind of follow suit. I mean, everybody knows who Joe Rogan is.
Yeah.
When Joe Rogan puts out an offer, most people don't care that it's for Onnit or that it's for all these other companies. They don't care. They just know of him and what he stands for and what he stands against and that ethos around him. That's what I mean by they have to memorize who you are. The other part of that, of memorizing how you solve their problem, it's not about you. You were, and that's why we recommended the book a few weeks ago. It's not about you being the hero. You have to be Yoda. You have to show them, hey, this is the path you need to walk down. Don't walk down this path filled with snakes, horrible pedophiles. People are going in wood chippers. Don't walk down that path. You need to go down this one over here. Right. And I'm going to save you a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of headache by you going down this path.
Right.
Once they understand that, you're golden. The next thing that I would say is, yes, test everything, but don't get attached to the outcome. I'm always looking for lead indicators versus lag indicators. Most people don't have marketing KPIs in their business. So when I say KPI, they're like, oh shit, I've got to memorize more numbers. I've got to manage this. Yeah, you do. You're a business owner, whether you're a solopreneur as a realtor, whether you've got a whole team around you, whether you run businesses that do X, Y, or Z, marketing deserves KPIs just like finances does, just like sales does, just like operations does.
Yeah.
What are your KPIs around that? And they can't be financial because, like I said it earlier, money ebbs and flows. It's just like the sun. You'll have high peaks of it where it's burning you up and you're just flooded with money. And there will be periods where it's dark and you feel like, holy crap, I can't wait for the next season of my life to come because I'm financially broke right now. It comes and goes and it's very cyclical and kind of wave form for most people. So when you put money as a KPI inside of marketing, like marketing has to produce $4 million a year in sales for me. That's a lag indicator. It's not a lead indicator because I can do all the things around a lag indicator. I can put out new promotions. I can do this. I can do that. But if it's not measurable, we don't know how we got there. So we're getting success again without the failures.
Right.
I need to know what you're measurable against. You need to know what your marketing department is being measured against. If you're hiring an agency, what are they being measured against? And it can't be money. How many leads do we need to acquire a month in order to get to that goal? That's a good number. Let's take it a step further. How much are you willing to pay for that lead, knowing what the end result's going to be? So then you can go to a marketer and say, hey, I need a $15 acquisition cost or cost per lead, and we need 10,000 of them. Now we've got a marketing budget.
Yeah.
And then a marketer can come and say, okay, well, with that budget, we can do some here, 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 and here. Look at what I called ROMI earlier, return on marketing initiatives. And now we've got progress. Otherwise, we're just going to spin our wheels if you keep coming to marketing and saying, we need more money, we need more money, we need more money. Well, that may be great. Marketing may have gotten you the 15,000 leads that you needed. But what did sales do? What did you as the business owner do if you're in charge of sales to close all those? Mm-hmm. Are you overwhelmed and you can't take them, so you just forget about the sales and then the lead goes untouched? Is that marketing's fault?
Nope.
We hit our numbers, but when business owners move goalposts around different elements inside of their business, they never get long-term sustained growth. And it causes a lot of problems because we created success, but we didn't know the failures to get there.
Right. That makes so much sense. And there's so many different KPIs that people don't track that they need to. So that's a huge takeaway. Marketing deserves KPIs, key performance indicators, for those listening, if we didn't spell it out. But Alex, this has been an amazing conversation. So many gems. I've got to listen to this one all the way through, as will the audience. Where can our audience go learn more about you? Where's that thing that you're going to pitch? Feel free to send me the link and I'm going to put it in the notes.
Please do.
Yeah.
So we have a top-rated Apple podcast. It's called NeuroHive, just like Brainlight, like neuro, and then like a beehive, hive, NeuroHive. And we drop content. I'm bad about being regular, but you at least get four episodes a month. And we range on topics anywhere from the psychology of money, branding, marketing, podcasting, neuroscience, the whole gamut, just very much like a conversation we had today. Half of it as guests, the other half of it is me talking about topics you guys should know about. Cool. And then I do have a pitch. Totally shameless. It's $27 a month. It's a newsletter. It's actually mailed to you, which nobody does anymore. Nobody actually mails newsletters. And I love doing it because, one, you guys get a lot more of my thought and a lot more of the research around what's actually happening than if I were to put it in an email. It gets lost. Then you say, I never got it. You'll get to it eventually, but you never do. Mm-hmm. I mail it to you. It's not electronic. You can't find it electronically anywhere. There's no obligation. And for everybody that listened to this, I'll give you the first one for free.
Nice. And where can they get that?
I'll send you the link.
Yeah. So everyone listening, go check the link in the show notes. I'll go ahead and put it in there. And that's cool. Cause I mean, I think we talked about this in the business coaching group of, should it be digital or, actually mailed to you? And gosh, who actually sends mail? And we were talking about that kid on Christmas feeling of like, you like opening mail that's not junk or coupons from Academy or whatever. I don't think I've gotten one of those in a long time. Being able to like read through there, highlight, take notes. Personally, I know I prefer a physical book over just Audible all the time because I like to write in it. I like to take notes. I like to dog ear the pages that I want to come back to. And so that's going to be really powerful for anyone looking to improve. I really love what you're doing with that. And so we'll be sure to put that link in the show notes.
Thanks, man. And like I said, the first one's free for you guys. No obligation. You don't like it, tell me to go pound salt and cancel whenever.
Sounds like a plan. So thank you once again, Alex. I really enjoyed our conversation. You're crushing it. You're one of those guys that I'm just like, man, you're super smart. I got to pull out a pen and a notebook every time you're talking about marketing because I know I'm going to learn something. So I know that the audience is going to get a ton of value. Check out the podcast, NeuroHive podcast. Check out the newsletter and look forward to keeping in touch and talking to you in about 20 minutes on our business coaching call.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Thanks again, Alex.